Hey everyone, it's Mike from Bodhi Designs Woodworking, coming at you with another video. This one we're going to be covering kind of the first step in bowl turning. One of the first steps is how to mount a blank on the lathe. So for purposes, this chunk of scrap ash wood is going to be the bowl. It's a little bit too thin to make a bowl, may make a lid or platter or something out of it. So the most common and kind of the most beginner way to do it is the faceplate. So all this is this piece threads onto your lathe. Most beginner lathes are 1 inch by 8 TPI. Then kind of bigger size lathes are 1/4 inch by 8 TPI. Some older lathe shopsmith lathes have a more, have a kind of unique threading. So just, make sure, which one you have. You find out the threading, memorize it, and buy your faceplates and anything that screws onto the spindle of the lathe to match that. So this is, pretty simple. It screws right on the lathe, and then it has, a variety number of holes. And all you do is you put this here, and then you secure it in. You don't want to use like a drywall screw. You don't want to use any kind of weak screw because there's going to be a lot of force taken on here. I actually have kind of some hex-headed, thick, coarse screws that I use. Grab a set here. These are, very coarsely threaded. Got a hex on it so I don't strip it out. And I can use these for multiple bowls. So one of the downsides to a faceplate is that, once it's fully on there, it's, you got to take everything off, move it over. You got to, possibly change the hole placement up. And then the other thing, if you're doing something very shallow, like a platter or a dish, you have to make sure that you have enough space inside the turning piece that you will actually turn out the holes made by this screw. And also, when turning, you're going to have an interrupted cut. I'll go over what an interrupted cut is later. But when you're turning and you run into these screws, and it's, it can be a little tricky in certain woods. But this is my preferred method of mounting a blank up. I use this probably 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10. And this is going to give you the most mechanical connection between the bowl and the faceplate. Couple things about faceplates are this is a 3-inch faceplate. You can go anywhere up to 6-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch faceplates. I keep 3, 4, and 6 available at all times because what you want to do is you never want the faceplate. You don't want to use, a small faceplate on a big bowl because you're going to have, it's not going to give you much support out here. Normally the rule of thumb I go by, and this is not an official rule, is that I want, my faceplate should be 1/3 of the width. Some woods I like, pine, I like a little bit more strength. Other woods, I'm fine going a little thing, but my faceplate should be 1/3 of the width of the diameter of the rough cut. Now on for the next method. So another method a lot of people have seen is the worm screw. So worm screws can either go inside of a faceplate. More commonly, they go inside of a chuck. And what happens is this piece, this notch right here, gets trapped around the chuck jaw. And then this face of the chuck almost becomes a flat face. And then this kind of pulls it into the face of the jaws. Again, it is a mechanical connection. So there's actually structural in there pulling it in. A couple of the issues with this is that one, you're kind of only relying on one actual connection. And if your chuck jaws are a little bit out of whack, it can kind of turn it to the side. You need an absolute flat surface along here. If you kind of have an uneven bowl blank, whereas something, you could, kind of shim it up with a faceplate, or you could, kind of just clean it up with a chisel and throw the face paint on there and it'll be fine. You need an absolute flat surface for the top of the chuck jaws to rest on. My other kind of issue with this is that it takes a lot of time. You got to get this in there. You got to, move it off. Your chuck stays on there for when you flip it over. But I would just much rather use a faceplate. I just find that it's easier. And another reason I don't like having my chuck on the lathe with the worm screw is if I'm turning with a faceplate and I have my tenon done, I can just turn the lathe off, quickly grab my chuck, test mount it. Okay, is my tenon good? Is my tenon bad? Do I need to, reshape it? Do I need to move it? With this, I have to, take it off, then reset it, and I'm not going to always get it perfectly reset. Whereas if, the bowl is actually not moving when I test it with the faceplate. But still, this is a great option. You just figure out, what size drill it to that depth, put it in there, lock it down, and you're good to go. Now, the last method is the spur drive center. So all this is instead of threading on to the actual spindle of your lathe, this actually goes inside the spindle in the Morse taper. Most lathes today are Morse taper 2. Older ones, you may see a 1. Big ones, you may see a 3. But all this does is it goes on there and it has a little spring. Some have springs, some have a variety number of teeth, and they lock that into the bowl and basically grip it. And one of the really nice things about the spur drive center compared to the worm screw or the faceplate is that it's easily adjustable. You can throw it in the lathe, do a test spin by hand, realize, oh, I'm off by an inch, pull it off, put it back in, okay, do a test spin and keep going. That's why you'll see a lot of people that turn bowls for a living or do some serious bowl turning. They'll use something like this because it's so quick and they can easily chuck it in there, throw the bowl, boom, 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 versus going through a faceplate where they have to put in, anywhere between 4 to 8 screws to put in the faceplate. So that's the first step on how to mount a blank to a lathe. There is no bad option between these three. It's all personal preference. Some are more universal, whereas others can only be used on kind of a flat stock and a very, simple shape. So, and as, I'll end this with my personal opinion. Like I said, I use the faceplate more than anything. I just like that mechanical connection, and I don't mind taking the few extra minutes to put this on and put it off. But again, all three of these will work for bowl turning. I've seen beautiful bowls turned with all three of these. And, remember, if it doesn't feel safe, don't do it. Take a step back and go, okay, how else can I do this? So Mike from Bodie Designs Woodworking, just remember, just keep turning.